Hi guys, today I'm going to try to tackle a touchy or difficult subject, the controller role. It's, in my opinion, it's probably the most difficult role to master. There are many reasons behind that. Essentially, you need to be a jack of all trade to be able to be a good controller. You need to be able to do a bit of damage. You need to be able to do crowd control. You need to be able to give power to your team. You need to be able to debuff the enemies, make them weaker. You need also to have what is known as situational awareness and being aware of your environment. You have to be aware of where everyone in your group is to make sure that when you try to give them power, that they're going to be in range. Like if there's a guy, if I try to give power to, let's say, the one of the dummies behind the pillar. The pillar essentially anything between you and your target will prevent you from giving him power. So even if I was to, it won't really work because I'm not grouped obviously with the training dummy. But if I was to, let's say, try to give power, this little guy over here, because he's behind that pillar, would not get power. So you have to be certain that whoever you want to give power to is within your line of sight, is within range of you. So that's part of the tricky part of why you have to make sure that everyone is nearby, everyone is close to you, or at least everyone is in range of you and in line of sight of you. So you have to be aware of where everyone is. You have to make sure that there's not something blocking between you and certain players. A good way to avoid that is if you're a flying character, if you fly up in the air, odds of something blocking you giving power to your team will be lessened. Although in certain missions, if you're flying in the air, you're going to be target of a lot of ads. So you have to know also when to do that and when to stay grounded on the floor and just moving around. Of course, as an acrobat, you're stuck on the ground anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So essentially, I'm going to go through all the powers that the gadget has and how they relate to the controller. I will not do the same with the DPS because essentially it's fairly simple. Most powers will allow the DPS to do more damage. So the first power will give 35% extra damage. Then some of the other powers will give again 35% extra damage to the controller. This one will give 40% extra damage. Come on. This one will give 45% extra damage, 45% extra damage, and 50%, 50%, 50%. So it's pretty simple. It goes from 35% extra damage up to 50% at the bottom of the skill tree. The same with the devices. You'll see it's 35% extra damage, 35, 35. Uh, oh, this one doesn't give anything. 45, 45, 50%, 50%, and 50%. So depending on where the power is located in the skill tree, it'll go from 35 to 50%. And ultimately, at some point, once you get your white mods, essentially once you get the max damage mod, all of that doesn't matter because your max damage mod will give you 60% extra damage no matter what power you use. So any power I use, I get 60%, 60%, 60%, 60%. Oh, not this one. 60%. So no matter what power you use, you will get 60% all the time. So I will make a slight demonstration. So I will use this and now I have 60%. So I will use my grenade. And The reason why you see such small numbers, which I just realized, is that if you notice the sparring target, the combat rating of the sparring target is 126 combat rating. So they're way, way, way above my combat rating. So I barely do any damage to them. But you get the idea. Essentially, once you have the max damage mod, pretty much everything you do allows you to do 60% extra damage. So uh, it's that simple. So we'll go with the troll roll, and we'll try to to see how all those powers work. So essentially, you remember you can reset the powers and the scales, or only the scales, or only the powers. Previously, we only in a previous video we just resetted the skill powers, the skill abilities. Now we're going to reset only the powers. So let's do that. And it since we did use it before, now it cost $650. Before it was like $500. The more you use the respect station in one day, the more expensive it will be. But the next day it will reset and it will be back to business as usual. So let's go back to our powers, tactics. So we're going to take all of them. And we're going to show what all of them do. Okay, so I'll go into the loadouts, control. I will take them all out. And so that's part of our movement. I don't know if you remember the forward flip attack. We used that early on in the game and then never used it again. The launching roll, we've used that a lot. So we'll start with the taser pull. Then we'll go with the fear gas. The stealth, even though we used it before, I'll go through it all again just to be sure. The defibrillator. The battle display. And the bunker buster. Let's finish with a supercharge. Okay. So essentially the taser pull, it's essentially the same as I don't know if you remember when we tried out the various movement skills. In the acrobatic skills, we had the grapple line attack. It's essentially the same, just that the grapple line attack doesn't have like an electric current that does extra damage. So, and as you can see, whenever I use the taser pull, there's that little green lightning bolt that appears underneath my name. Essentially, that lightning bolt will appear underneath the name of everyone within range of you when you use that ability. So let's burn out some power a bit. Oh, so wrong one. That's okay. We'll get it back. That was the bunker busters, if you've been wondering. So essentially, it's a bunch of missiles that fall down and does a truckload of damage. It's a supercharge, so you can only use it a limited amount of times. But it's okay. So again, we'll use the taser pull, and you see the little lightning bolt appeared. And you see also the little burst, the little green star burst that appears. The reason why we get the green star burst, even though we're not in DPS role, is because of the max damage mode. Essentially, even though we're not DPS, the max damage mode gives us, instead of giving us 60% as it does with the DPS, it gives us 10%. It's not a deal breaker, but it's better than nothing. So as long as we have the starburst, every attack we have will do 10% more. And so as a controller, the very, very first thing you do ever in any fight, you start the power over time. Essentially, you get the little lightning bolt started. That's super important because that's going to give power to your whole team. Your whole team will benefit from that. and your whole team will be able to use more powers and thus be able to be more effective in the mission, whether in combat. The healer will be able to heal more because he'll have more power to heal. The tank will be able to control or aggro, attract the enemies more because he'll have more power to do so. So it's super important that whatever you do, you start out with the lightning bolt and you make sure that it's always there. As soon as you see it disappear, you cast it again. It doesn't. You don't need to cast it every 5 seconds. It will not do anything. Essentially, the first time you cast it, it will allow you to gain powers, a certain amount of powers. Like in this case, it seems to be 119. Come on. Okay. So in this case, it seems to be 119. So every 5 seconds, you will get a burst of 119. So make sure that every 5 seconds you have that 919, that 119, with that little lightning bolt underneath your name. So as soon as you see the lightning bolt disappear, you cast it again. Although there is what is known as the double tick. Essentially, if you can cast it just before, essentially you count to five. You count to five for each tick, and before you reach the fifth tick, you cast it again. So you will do what is known as the double tick. The one you will cast will give the 119, and the very last tick will also give you 119. So if you time it properly, there will be one time there will be one time where it will give essentially double the amount of power. So you start at 119, then you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that should be the first tick. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That should be the second tick. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then that should be the third tick. And at some point before the fourth tick happens, oh, wrong one, you cast it again. And you should have another tick. Essentially, within 5 seconds, you should have two ticks. You have the ticks that you already casted, and then you have what should be the last tick of the sequence. So essentially, you should be able to keep the whole thing rolling and rolling and rolling infinitely, and end up with the last tick. I'm exaggerating by counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You don't really need to do that. But because at some point you will pretty much know, like once you cast one power and then one power and then one power and then one more power, you'll know that, oh, okay, this is about the time that I need to cast the new tick. But so make sure that lightning bolt is always there. Don't worry too much about the double tick at first. At first, just worry that you see the lightning bolt, all is good. If you see the lightning bolt disappear, right away, cast it again to make it reappear. And as soon as you keep that lightning bolt going, you'll do fine. So let's try another power. That is, what's it called again? Okay. Essentially, this one is the fear gas. It has a few power interaction, like if you do it on a burning enemy or an electrified enemy, or a frostbitten enemy, it will have extra abilities. But essentially, all you do is that you do damage over time to the enemy, and you make it to panic. You scare it. Essentially, it's a bit of a crowd control. So normally you should be able to scare them. So while they're scared, they'll be more or less stunned, or they'll run away. So the dummies don't really show that much, but that should be what happens. And then there's obviously the stealth mode, which we've used quite a lot so far. So in stealth, essentially you have a stealth loadout that you can assign any, well, not any, but you can assign most of your powers to it. So you can pretty much customize your stealth as you wish, and you can pretty much use any power you really wish. So, and as you saw, like I used the taser line, and it didn't give me the power over time. I guess if you use it from your stealth loadout, it won't count as a troll attack, I suppose. But if you, as soon as you're back, as soon as you're visible again, then if you use it again, you'll start the power over time again. So, the other one is then the defibrillator. The defibrillator, quite simply, what it does is that it gives power to your other team members, to three other team members to be exact. Essentially, whenever you cast the defibrillator, the three people in your group who have the less power, you will restore a bit of power to them. Also, it will increase your might and your precision for a short time. So essentially, when you use the defibrillator, you give power to select people in your team, and also you will be doing extra damage. So whatever attack you make will do a bit more damage than they would have, and it's pretty much that simple. The other one is the battle display. We've used it a bit so far. For the controller, it doesn't do all that much. Essentially, it heals yourself over time. It's a fairly nice healing abilities. But the best part is that it starts what is known as the battle awareness. That's pretty much for the DPSs. So essentially, you start your battle. If you're a DPS, you start your battle display, and while your battle display is there, you can, whatever powers you cast as a DPS, whatever offense. Well, not it's not. Some of the powers you cast will give you back powers. Like essentially, you start with your battle display, and you'll see that some abilities, like this one says, while battle awareness is active, enemies restore power to you when we hit with this ability. So essentially, when you hit enemies with your taser pull, whatever damage you do to them will help you gain some power. Not all powers do that. Like the fear gas as the battle awareness. Not this one. The cryo foam as the battle awareness. The cryo field as the battle awareness. The gauss grenade as the battle awareness. And sadly, the neural neuralizer doesn't have it. And the paralyzing dart as the battle awareness. So essentially, you start your battle awareness, and then you use your other powers that also have battle awareness, and those powers will give you power back to you. That's what it does for the DPS. Sadly, for the controller, all it does, it gives you power over time if you were damaged a bit, and that's pretty much it. So let's go see our other skills. So let's go back to loadout. So we will get rid of that, and that. And so we still have the bunker buster, so we'll keep that. So we'll get the gas grenade. We'll get the cryofoam. We'll get the battle drone. We'll keep the battle drone for later, I guess. We'll get the paralyzing dart, and we'll get the cryo field. So essentially, I'll keep the two supercharge for the end to show what they do. So essentially, the Gauss grenade, what it does is that it reduces the, I was about to say the defense, but I'm probably lying. Oh no, it reduces enemies' defense. So as you cast it, you can see that little red shield under the sparring target. Essentially, what it says is that you've lowered its defenses. It's not that much. It's like at most it's like 15%, or it's between 7 and 15%, depending on who you ask. And ultimately, like just to give you an example, let's say you use the debuff through the whole fight. The debuff will and let's say for a 30-minute fight, the debuff will save you 30 seconds. It's pretty much that simple. So it doesn't make a huge difference, but as they say, every little bit helps. And in some cases, some enemies will have sometimes a defense buff. The debuff will allow you to take away their buff and also to reduce their defense. So when that happens, the ability is twice useful, sort of. So essentially, so once you've hit it with a, let's say, a debuff, then you hit it with another power. This one is also a debuff. Essentially, you spray the evil enemy, and also you can see the power interaction. Like I burn it, and then I freeze it, and the two interact together. So again, you see the Gauss Grenade adds a little red shield to show that I'm reducing its defense. And the Cryo Foam adds a little red heart to show that I'm preventing it from healing itself. I'm not really preventing it, I'm just lowering the amount of health he will heal himself with. But still, it's usually pretty useful. So and let's try the other one. That's a pretty good one. Essentially, this creates this is a neural neuralizer, and what it does is that it creates a force field around you. The force field doesn't last very long. It's not as long as some of the force field of the Mantle character or the Green Lanterns. But in addition to the force field, you also see these little bursts of explosions. So it creates a force field that protects you for a tiny bit, and it also does a truckload of damage around you. So when you're surrounded by a bunch of enemies, casting that not only protects you from them for a bit, but it also damages all those around you. It's a fairly useful ability to have. Now, this one, the Paralyzing Dart, it has a few abilities. Essentially, it will stun and or paralyze your target or a few targets around him, which is not bad. And also you can see there's that little target, that little red target underneath the sparring target. Essentially what that means is that when you see that, you've lowered the damage that the target will do. So essentially, you've lowered the attack that the opponent will do. So the opponent's attack will not hit quite as hard thanks to that little thingy. So ideally, if you could, in a magic world, if you could use all the debuffs, all the fight, that would be nice. But it sadly there's too many things. Like you have. Maybe if there was one controller that gives power and one controller that does nothing but debuff, that might work. But it rarely does that. And last but not least is the cryo field. Like essentially you can see it creates this huge like cold tornado around you, and anything that gets trapped in that tornado gets damaged. So our friend, the poor sparring target, gets damaged by that evil tornado. Let's try it again. And sometimes, as you see, it can freeze them into cubes. So you can grab them and throw them away if you want to. So it's a pretty nice ability to do damage. A lot of people like to use it. So let's go and tweak our loadout a bit more. Let's add the drone. And let's put back the power over time. So essentially that little lightning bolt, like that green lightning bolt that you see, it's known as the power over time icon. Because what it does is that it gives you power over time. As time passes by, it gives you power back. Now we're going to try to build our supercharge to try and show you what the other abilities do. You did see the Bunger Busters, but I'll try to show it to you again. Okay, so let's get started with this one. So essentially, this is a battle drone that you can summon. and it will attack enemies that you see. It will give power back to the group sometimes. So it does quite a few things. And there it goes. It lasts a bit. It attacks a bit. It gives power a bit. It's fairly useful to use. So let's get our lightning back. Let's debuff. In an ideal world, that's kind of more or less what you would do. Like you would give the power a time, debuff a bit, then attack a bit. Well, I'll try to show a better example later on. Okay, so our supercharge is full. Well, not full, but it's full enough that we can use the bunker buster. So let's use that again. So as you'll see, it creates some sort of attack, like missiles that come from the sky that hits your target, and that's pretty much what it does. So essentially, that was it for the tactic powers. But let's try one more time. Let's take this here. Let's take this here. Where is it? Gas grenade. Oh, the dart. Defibrillator. What's the other one? Let's put it here. And here we'll put, where is it? Defense we have. Oh, there's the one. Reduce their ability to heal. Okay. So essentially, just to recap, so you start by giving power to your group with the power over time. Then, depending on the situation, you could use some debuffs to debuff the bad guys. And then once in a while, you'll hit the defibrillator to give power back to your group, and then you'll start the power over time again, and then you'll do a bit of debuffs on the side, and then you'll give power. So essentially, these are kind of the kind of abilities you want to use. But the most important, always keep the power over time running. There's no real reason not to have that running constantly. The debuffs, if you can do them, fine. If you can't, it's not a big deal. But ideally, if you can keep the power over time running, and even better, if you can recharge your partners when they need it, that's probably the most important thing you can do. So let's look at the other. Let's reset the powers again, and now we're going to look at the other branch of the gadget character. We're going to look at the uh, let's let's take all of them. There we go. So let's go. Hi there. I'm giving essentially a crash course on controlling on this universe online. You're welcome to watch. I didn't enable the chat. So if you try to chat and I don't respond, don't feel insulted. I'm not ignoring you. I just don't see the chat right now. But I'm glad you're there to watch. So essentially, again, I'm going to go to my control loadout. I'm going to clear everything and let's start fresh. So let's start with our sticky bomb. Let's start with our. We won't use this one. Holographic decoy. Let's start with our intimidation. Let's start with our distract, suppressor turret, and we'll skip the superchargers for now, as we did before. So essentially, you can see the sticky bomb. In this case, the sticky bomb is our power over time. The holographic decoy I'll show you what it does. Intimidation is an attack buff. Essentially, the controller will debuff, but he cannot buff his group. He can debuff the enemies, but he cannot buff his group. The only one he can actually buff is himself with a few abilities like intimidation. So essentially, what it does is that he'll do more damage and he'll scare the enemies that are around him. Distract essentially protects you for a short while, and it will detaunt enemies. Essentially, the enemies that are targeting you, they might look for another target when you use that ability. There's a suppressor turret. I'll admit to you, I never ever used that, so I'll discover that at the same time as you guys do. The anesthetic essentially is the supercharge that heals you and protect you against control effect for a short time. It's one of the abilities I find fairly useful. The asphyxiation gas, essentially you drop a canister of gas that chokes enemies. It's that simple. The vortex cannon in here is our crowd control, is our debuff that will allow us to reduce the enemy's damage. The stasis field is what will reduce enemies' defense. It's our debuff for that. The EMP pulse, essentially it will stun and damage a bunch of enemies around you. The photon blast is just a damager. It's a fairly powerful one. And also it's what is known as a finisher. If the target is below 35% health, you probably could do extra damage and kill it with that. And the napalm grenade, it does two things for the controller. It will stun. Oops. It will stun up to two enemies, and it will reduce their ability to heal. And also, it does a bit of damage. So we will go through that. So again, the sticky bomb, that's your power over time. So if this is what the one, essentially you either use the sticky bomb or the taser pull. I don't really see a reason to use both, but if you want to use both, no one is stopping you. So essentially, you start the fight with your sticky bomb always, and you start your power over time. That's pretty important. And then there's the holographic decoy. Essentially, what it does is that it creates a decoy that normally the enemies should be attracted to that, and that's what they should be attacking, allowing you sometimes to go and click on your friends and click on consoles, or while the enemies are distracted by this, it should give you time to do a few things. And also, in addition to the I will say the holographic decoy, there's also your this that will scare enemy. Essentially, that will make them stop targeting you as well. Like essentially, oh no, I was sure it was. Okay, it's a bit of a stun. I was pretty sure it was also the taunting, like making the enemies stop attacking you. So I was about to suggest, like, if you do the holographic decoy and then this, there's the odds are they will attack the decoy and they will leave you alone at least for a few seconds. So, and now let's summon our friend, the suppressor turret, and there it goes. So essentially, you have a little friend that follows you around and that will attack your enemies. It will, I think it does quite a few things. Let's go make sure. Like when you're a controller, it will fire cryogenic rounds to frostbite your enemies. It will essentially make them vulnerable to freezing. It will use stun grenades and taser line to electrify them, making them vulnerable to electrified powers. Or it will encase and damage them over time. So it seems to be a fairly useful friend. Oh, that's the one. Okay, I was mistaken. It's not intimidation that will make them not attack you. It's distract. So essentially, a good combo would be you summon your holographic decoy, then you hit distract. Distract will mean that enemies will try to attack another target, but you, and the decoy will attract them. So the decoy with the distract, odds are the enemies will leave you alone. So it's pretty useful when you need to click on fallen comrades or when you need to click on consoles. Uh, Essentially, the distract holographic decoy could be a good combo. So you hit the one first, then you hit the other one, and enemies should be attracted to your decoy. So it's a fairly useful tool. And then let's try the Photon Blast. As you see, the Photon Blast, there's that little target that appears under the sparring target. So the target is going to do less damage thanks to that. And you can see your friend the turret is attacking the target. Pretty sweet. So let's try something else. So let's get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that. Now we'll keep our friend the turret for now. And let's get stasis field. Let's take the EMP pulse, the photon blast, and the napalm. Oh, it wasn't photon blast, it was vortex cannon. Okay, the thing I used to debuff before was the vortex cannon. So again, you start with the grenade always. Oh, and I can FYI, if you're in combat, you won't be able to change your loadout. So let's see if I'm still in combat. Loadout control. Bye. And let's go take stasis field, EMP pulse, photon blast, and the napalm grenade. So let's go back again. So again, as always, the first thing, oh no, that's the second thing. The first thing, you start with your grenade. You start your power over time. So, and as you can see, the stasis field, We don't really see it here, but usually it creates like a ball that crushes your enemies. And if you see under the sparring target, there's that little red shield. That means that we're lowering their defense. So, and the EMP attack, the EMP pulse, as you saw, essentially it's just like a wave of energy that will damage anything around you, which is usually pretty powerful. But of course, right now the dummies are like 126 CR, so we barely damaged them. And here's the actual photon blast. So as you see, it does a bit of damage, but not. It doesn't seem that powerful. And then the grenade, like as you see with the napalm grenade, the grenade already does some damage over time. It does put the target on fire. Also, it will stun the target a bit. But also, there's that little red heart. That means that you're debuffing the enemy. It means essentially that if the enemy is trying to heal itself, it's going to have a harder time doing that because of that little red heart. So that should be neat. So again, whenever you get the chance, get that little lightning, that green lightning going. It's super important. So we will go out of combat, and we will try to change our loadout one more time. So let's go see loadout control. So let's show you our supercharge. So let's build our supercharge a bit. Oh, lightning bolt. So as you can see, the supercharge recharges fairly slowly. But you can see it in two places. Like you can see under the Wolverine X, you see the health bar, which is yellow. You see the power bar, which is blue. And underneath, you see the orange, or sort of orange supercharge. But let's say you have a hard time seeing it in the top corner. If you see in the loadout at the bottom of the screen, you can see the supercharge, also the progress of the supercharge around your power. So once you're ready to use the power, as you see, like I can use the health power now because now the supercharge is full for that. So let's do that. Essentially, you won't see much. All it does is this. And then your character, if the character was damaged, it would heal a bit. And also it would protect him from a certain control effect. Like if enemies try to stun him or tries to control him, it would protect him from that. So it's a fairly useful ability. You don't really see what it does unless you're in combat. So anyways, give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Holy crap, the old turret is unleashed. So let's build our supercharge again to show you our last supercharge, which is the gas canister. So as you see on the loadout, around the powers that have a supercharge, you can see the supercharge build up. And as soon as the power is ready to use, we'll know. So you see the healing supercharge is ready to use. The gas canister is almost ready to use. There we go. So what does the canister do? Let's find out. Like you see, there's like a canister of gas that appears where the enemy is, and you could see a cloud of gas around him. If there's enough enemy together, it will damage most of them, if not all of them. So it's good to do that in a group of enemies, but you can do it on a single target also. It's not that big a deal. So we pretty much went through the whole power. So I will get back to the way I usually use this character so far. So essentially, you can see have the power over time. So essentially, this is how I keep the lightning bolt running. I start the very first thing, sticky grenade. There's no hesitation, no doubt, no nothing. Sticky grenade. That's what I start with. The debuff I use right now is the gauss grenade because it's the defense debuff. It's the one I find the most useful so far. So that's the one I use the most. Of course, there's the defibrillator, which will give power back to the rest of my group. So, and there's the distract, which will allow me to click on a fallen enemy or click on a console when I need to. And of course, and there's the stealth ability that allows me to put mines. And there's the two sorts of mines. There's the thermite mines and there's the implosion mines. So there's also I have the taser pull attack on that loadout if I want to pull an enemy. So essentially, since I don't have it right now, what I can do is that I can go in stealth mode, and then I can use the taser attack. Although you don't really see it, it happens very quick. So, and of course, so you debuff, you give power over time. And then you give power, debuff, power over time, give power. It could almost be just that. It's a little more complicated than that. Like, and also there's this to click on to raise fallen players, or to click on consoles or objectives. And of course, I have the drone in order to be able to give a bit extra power when needed. And of course, the stealth. There's a stealth attack that you can do that isn't very useful. Yeah, there you go. You just saw that. It's such a weak attack that it makes it pointless. Odds are I'll probably replace it with something more useful at some point. But essentially, right now it's what I have. But maybe I could change it right now. Come to think of it. Without stealth, what could I put there that's much better than that? I guess I could put the battle display. Would give me a bit of healing when needed. I could put And the same here, like these are cuffs that allows you to try to incapacitate an enemy. It's usually freaking pointless. So I'll put maybe this here instead. Yeah, I just realized I'm still in combat. So let's get out of here. Ah, come on. Okay, yeah, take two, loadout, stealth. So I'll go with the battle display. I'll go with this little dart here. And that ought to do it. There we go. Well, you can see the classic Magneto look. And he's sweet. And this is pretty much a made-up look for the Magneto First Class. It might be a little too action figure-like, but I kind of liked it. But I don't really use it anymore. I have four other styles that I actually use instead. So now that I've changed some of the loadout of my character, I will need to go and re-imprint it again. So let's go and do that. Oh yeah, I should probably rename my base also. So as you saw, I didn't take the time to give a name to my base. It's called Base 1. That's the name all bases have by default. So let's go and see if we cannot give it a better name. Let's call it the X layer. Let's see if that works. Holy crap, it worked. So I made some changes to my controller, so I will imprint those new changes. And there you go. So as you probably remember, so essentially you start with the power over time. There's no questions. You don't even hesitate. You don't even think about it. The very first move you start with, the power over time. There's no reason not to start with that. Then as you go, you can debuff with a defense debuff, a heal debuff, or an attack debuff. Doesn't matter. Once in a while, if you can afford to, if you have plenty of power, sure, you once in a while you can debuff. But once your group starts running out of power, don't be afraid to recharge them. The priority should go to the healer and the tank. Essentially, there's a chain like if the healer has no power to heal, you won't be able to heal the tank. If the tank doesn't get health, you will die. If the tank dies, the healer die, and if the healer die, the group dies. It's usually that simple. So ideally, you have to keep the healer and the tank powered because the tank also has to pull the enemies towards him. So if the tank has no power to do that, well, odds are the enemies will jump on the healer, and again, the healer dies, the group dies. So you have to make sure that the healer has enough power to heal the tank, and you have to make sure that the tank has enough power to be able to pull the enemies towards him and essentially protect the healer or even protect the whole group. So if the DPS runs out of power, it's not the tragedy because he can still attack with his weapons. But if the healer runs out of power, the healer can't heal. If the tank runs out of power, the tank can't keep the enemies towards him. And of course, if you run out of power, you won't be able to give power to the rest of the group. So it's a chain that is linked together. And so you have to give power to your friends, and also you have to manage your own power. You have to be careful not to burn your power needlessly, because you won't be able to give power to the group when they need it. So it's very important that as a controller, make sure you give power to your group. It's the very basic thing is start by giving power. There's no reason not to do that. And you don't wait. You don't wait for people's power bar to go down. There's no reason for that either. Uh, as soon as you start the fight, you start your power over time. And if you see people's power going down too much, you defibrillate. You give them extra power. There there's no escaping that. If you play as a controller, that is what people will expect of you, and that is how you will keep your group alive. So the lightning is gone, you bring it back. Your friends are running out of power, you give some more back. You have a bit extra power, you can debuff. So that's pretty much it for the controller. It's fairly simple, but it's a bit complicated at the same time. I will do other videos, and essentially when I do in a duo, I won't be able to show the controller as much. But in a four-man mission, when I start doing alerts, like essentially when I start doing missions like where was I? When I start doing missions like Area 51 or Ace Chemicals or even Bloodhaven or Hive Moon Base, I'll show you. You'll see more examples of how a controller can help his group and keep them alive. So that was it for the controller role. I hope it was helpful at least a bit, and I guess I'll see you next time. Next time I'll probably do a mission or two to show you in action how the actual role works. So until next time.